All right, hello everyone. Today's title for the Bible time is The Last Class. Can anyone guess why I'm calling this The Last Class? Any guesses? Today is the last week on the book of Ecclesiastes. I'm kind of glad that we're moving on to a new book. But before you guys forget, let's do a review, okay? They kind of gave away the answer, but which book have we been going through for the past couple months? It's the book of what? Okay, you guys can do louder than that, okay? Book of what? All right, and who wrote the book of Ecclesiastes? Solomon. And who was the father of Solomon? David. And what was Solomon known for the most? He had great what? Wisdom. And in this book, Solomon uses this word many, many times to describe our life here on earth. Can anyone guess what their word might be? Starts with M. Meaningless. I think I heard that from somebody. And why does he say life is meaningless? He was actually saying that life without being close to God, life without walking beside God is meaningless. In other words, if you want to live a meaningful life, you need to be in the presence of God, and that was his final message. So, this is the last, verse or the last message of the book of Ecclesiastes. So I want us to read this one verse together loud and clear, okay? Let's show the next verse and let's read it together. 1, 2, 3. That's the whole story. Here now is my final conclusion. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. This is Solomon's final conclusion, and it says, fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. Let's talk about your duty, and let's talk about my duty and the responsibilities that we have. Let me ask you a question. Whose responsibility is it to do your homework? Whose responsibility is it? It's your responsibility, right? It's our responsibility. And do you sometimes say, no, it's the teacher's responsibility to do the homework? The teacher didn't tell me. That's what I hear all the time. The teacher didn't tell me. Or do you sometimes say, no, it's the school's responsibility. They should, do the homework for us. No one really says that, right? It's your and it's our responsibility. And when it comes to church, whose responsibility is it to fear God and obey his commands? Whose responsibility is it? Is it my responsibility? No, a little bit, but maybe not entirely, right? It's your responsibility. Is it your teacher's responsibility to teach you, the word of God in the right way so that you can honor God, fear God, and obey his commands? Is it the teacher's responsibility? No. Then whose responsibility is it? It's your responsibility. It's our responsibilities, right? When I was, in your age, there's this one subject that I was really not good at, and it was a subject of art. But it turned out that my sister was really good at art. She was an art major. So for one of my homeworks, I literally don't know how to draw at all. So I asked my sister. I actually bribed her. My sister is not nice enough so that, if I just ask him, she will do, I had to bribe her. I think I gave her like 500 or something like that. And, she thought about it. She gave in. And then she drew the art homework for me. And since she was an art major, I told her, you don't have to do such a good job because I don't want the teacher to find out. And she actually did her best to draw in a way that, it was not a good drawing according to her standards, but it was excellent drawing in my standards, right? And I brought my homework to the teacher. And do you think the teacher knew? She found that immediately. And she asked me, who drew that? And I was like, at first, I have to confess, I lied. At first, I was like, it was me. And then she kept on asking me, who drew this, really? And this is what I told the teacher. I held a pencil, but my sister kind of helped it to draw for me. And I got in big, big trouble. Don't ever do that. And guys, here's the thing. If you're just holding the pencil And if somebody is moving your hands to draw something, you look at it and do you say, oh, that's my drawing? Do you do that? No, you don't do that. When you are just passively being there in your presence, holding a pencil, and when somebody is doing everything else for you, that's not really your thing. That's not really your drawing. In the church, if you are just sitting here, just listening to somebody speak, just doing the crafts that your teachers have made, and just listening to your parents or teachers, and you're just passively sitting by, just going through the motions and just telling yourself, oh, I went to church. Do you think that's good enough? No. That's the worship and that's the faith that somebody else has done for you, just like my sister was, drawing for me. When somebody else does it for you, it never becomes your own. So at some point in your life, you have to take the responsibility for yourself and you have to say, this is my faith and this is my relationship with God. And Solomon says, fear God. And it shouldn't be somebody like myself telling you to fear God. It should be yourself really thinking about who God is, what God is capable of, and what God's plans are for your life. And it's really coming to your senses and really asking yourself, how can I live a life of fearing God? And Solomon also says, obey God's commands. Many times we obey because we're just told to do so or we're afraid of the consequences. But Solomon is telling us, no, you obey God's commands because it is real, because it is true. That is the only way to live a good life. So instead of somebody telling you what to do, instead of just doing the things because you're afraid of the punishment or the consequences, you have to make a decision by yourself and you have to say, not because somebody else is telling me to do, but I am going to live my life in a way of obeying God's commands. If you want to obey God's commands, what do you have to do? You have to know what God's commands are. Again, not just because your parents or your teachers tell you to bring offering to church or make sure you clap during the fast songs or make sure you close your eyes during prayer. That's all good. You have to come to your senses and really understand what does the Bible say about the Word of God, and just search the scriptures, read the Bible, and if you find one command, try to do it yourself. In that way, the Word of God is going to become your own. Next week, we are celebrating our first anniversary as a church, and we're doing one thing. That is our baptism and or confirmation. Every believer by the age, if you turn the age of 14, should really think about getting baptized. And you should think about getting confirmed if you have been baptized as a baby or as an infant. Every believer should be baptized, but this time we don't want to force you. And your parents should not force you. They could ask you, but you should make a choice of yourself. Who am I going to live for? Am I going to live for God, or am I going to live for myself or for the things in this world? Once that decision is clear, everyone should become baptized, and it's your own. It's a public proclamation of your faith, on your determination of how you're going to live your life for God. So, it kind of depends on every person. I hate to put a standard, but the church standard is that when you turn the age of 14, we believe that you're old enough to make a public proclamation for your faith, and we are going to confirm you or baptize you. So as we're wrapping up on the book of Ecclesiastes, let's read this verse one more time. And I want you guys to really try to understand what these words mean and really try to take those words into your heart. And that really is the last message that Solomon is giving us. So let's read it together loud and clear. Okay, 1, 2, 3. That's the whole story. Here now is my final conclusion. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. Alright, I'm gonna dismiss you guys. 우리 초등부까지 일어나서 선생님 따라가 주시면은 you guys will have a fun class today.